To hell with being a saint. I'm a doctor. The beginning of magic. Chapter 4. Such concentration was necessary for this task. If even one image was incorrect, everything would dissolve into nothingness. Therefore, he tried hard to avoid even the smallest stray thoughts. I can push it a bit further, just a little more. He was truly pushing his mana road to its limit. He drew in mana as quickly as he could manage, as much as possible. Ray's mana road was incomparable to other magicians in terms of size. With such a massive mana road, it was evident that it would attract the mana floating in the air. However, Ray was not content. He added more paths to the expanded mana road. The naturally divided paths found their way down to each tiny capillary. By now, his body was drenched as if he had been rained upon. Yet, a smile was slowly spreading across his face. After about an hour, Ray opened his closed eyes. Finally, it's done! I thought my body was going to explode. Indeed, it could have exploded if he had even slightly mismanaged his power. Did the mana road form correctly? Ray attempted to create fire in the air as a test. Whoosh! Wow, it really works, doesn't it? This is like magic. And, as expected, there's no circle. Originally, the circle was the cluster of mana inside a magician's body, but magic could be manifested even without it. However, other magicians did not have a unique mana road like Ray's, so they could not draw in the necessary mana for magic. That's why they had to create a ring of mana within their bodies. In Ray's case, he could draw in enough mana necessary for the manifestation of magic, and he could use magic naturally without having to gather it together. The quantity and quality of mana were clearly different from the current magicians. Just as stagnant water decays, stagnant mana was incomparable to flowing mana. His mana could produce excellent results with a small amount, and unlike other magicians, there was no risk of depletion even if he used up all the mana in his body. He drew in more mana from the atmosphere. This meant there were no limitations of a circle. In other words, if he understood the principle, he could use magic regardless of whether it was a first circle or a fifth circle. Cancel! The fire that had appeared in the air vanished without a trace at his command. This is quite fun. Fire! Whoosh! Cancel! Whoosh! He couldn't use powerful magic yet, but even simple magic was quite enjoyable. And naturally, a desire to learn more sprouted within him. It seemed like he would enjoy visiting the library even more in the future. Is Ray in the library again? Sayin poured tea into Ale's cup and asked. Ale took the cup and sipped the tea. Yes, he usually goes there, so he's probably there right now. At his words, Sayin gently placed her hands on her cheek. Is it okay to leave our child alone like this? He's still 3 years old. He's clever just like me. It'll be fine. So, you're saying that I'm stupid? No. That's not what I meant. Sorry for being stupid. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm going to see Ray. You just stay there and have your tea. Sayin opened the door to the study. Ray, are you here? Immediately, an answer came. Yes. Oh, I didn't even know you were here. She felt guilty as she spoke. It's strange how mature he is. He's still 3 years old. We haven't played with him much. Her sense of responsibility as a mother grew. She even thought that maybe he had no choice but to confine himself to the study because no one played with him. So, she decided to play with Ray for the whole day today. Sayin said with a bright smile, Our son, do you want to play with Mommy today? At those words, Ray's eyes sparkled. Play? Magic? What magic should I learn? What else is there? His expression brightened at the thought of how he could use mana to create different phenomena. If his mother had taught him that as both play and education, he would surely have learned it as his duty as a son. But she interpreted Ray's bright eyes differently. He must have been wanting to play so badly to look that happy. I should play with him more often. Her maternal love was fully displayed. She decided to make that day the best day ever. Yes, shall we have fun playing, Mommy? Yes, I'd love to. They were both dreaming different dreams. Mommy? Yes? Zane stopped at Ray's call. There are no books here. Yes, you don't have to read books today. Why? Just play as much as you want today. While it must have been a gesture of consideration for Ray, to him, it couldn't have been more disappointing. He had finally managed to construct his mana road faster than he thought and was able to use magic. But playing? How could that have made any sense? Naturally, a sound of refusal flowed from his mouth. Mom, I think I need to study more. If you know one, you should aim to know two. Those words were unbelievable to come from the mouth of a child who had just turned 3. But to Zane, who believed that her son was a once-in-a-lifetime genius and the cutest being in the world, it wasn't difficult to accept. Rather, she smiled and gently stroked Ray's head. Where did you learn to say that? Oh, you're so precious. Rather, it just made Mom happy. Mom was thrilled by her son's genius. She was so excited that she seemed willing to do anything she could to play with him. So Ray's mouth shut on its own. Our son, haven't you ever been outside? Shall we go out with Mom today? Anyway, he gave up magic for that day. Since he had hardly played with his parents for 3 years, he thought he could take a break that day. After all, he hadn't been outside since he was reincarnated in this world. The thought of wanting to know what this world was like played a significant part in that day's play. Yeah, let's go out. Once you see how wonderful it is outside, you want to go out every day. Zane finished speaking and opened the front door. Pleasant sunlight streamed in through the gap in the door. He was awestruck by the moderately dazzling sight. Wow! The door swung wide open. A gentle breeze rustled through his sparse hair. Before him, a scenery he had never imagined unfolded. Unknown grass, stone-made stairs, floating clouds, the faint noise of a distant village. The world, similar to Earth, but distinctly different, unfolded the moment he opened the front door. Chills ran down his back continuously. It was by far the most incredible thing he had ever seen. 3 years had passed since he had left his home. One might wonder how he hadn't gone outside, but he had been so engrossed in studying and sensing mana that he hadn't thought about venturing out. Now, he regretted not going outside sooner. Hadn't he essentially confined himself in a cage? They say you can truly taste the air when you are free. Indeed, that was true. Zane spoke to Ray, who was standing quietly with his mouth agape. Go outside. You can run and play as much as you want. Ray looked up at Zane. His usually large eyes grew even wider in this surprising situation. Her son had never shown surprise before. He had always maintained a similar demeanor, but the moment he stepped outside, everything changed. Now, he resembled an ordinary child. Zane couldn't help but hug Ray. Unlike usual, he didn't try to push her away. All he could think about was what lay behind the mountain and what scenery unfolded beneath that stone bridge. Ray looked up at the sky and smiled brightly. I'm really glad I was reborn. Mom? Yes? Thank you for taking me outside. Zane was at a loss for words at Ray's comment. Sometimes, her son seemed more mature than she was, while at other times, he exuded the aura of someone who had experienced much. Yet, there were moments when he was utterly innocent. He was barely over 3 years old. It was indeed peculiar that he could project such a range of atmosphere. Nevertheless, she chose to smile quietly instead of questioning Ray. See? You'll want to go out every day, won't you?" At her words, filled with laughter, Ray chuckled as if he was amused. "I suppose I'll have to agree." This place was enchanting enough to make him forget the memories of his past life. Chapter 5. He frolicked without a care in the world. Despite his mental age exceeding 30, he played with the innocence of a child. It appeared that as his body regressed in age, so did his mind. Nevertheless, he gained much from this experience. The world, as seen through a child's eyes, held a freedom beyond anyone else's imagination. The sensation of grass against his skin, the wind caressing his cheek. Every action he took filled his heart with joy, and everything he saw delighted him. It was as if he was reclaiming something he had lost in his weary existence. His mother watched him silently from her chair. This joyful time lasted half a day. Upon returning home with his mother, Ray immediately channeled the mana within his body. Clean! Shortly after the incantation, his sweaty body was in peak condition. His mana road was exceptionally broad and robust, allowing him to expel waste products at will. Ray himself was unaware, but the clean spell was something only a 3-circle user could typically use. However, his mana road, unusually wide for a human, defied common sense. As an exceptional case, free from the constraints of circles, he could perform such feats. This is incredibly handy, but what happens if I use it when I'm not 30? Clean! Mana enveloped his body once more, but no significant changes were evident. I'll need to investigate this further. Understanding his own power was the crucial matter. The systematic knowledge and experiences would serve as invaluable data for him when using more advanced spells. After all, isn't it said that when knowledge and skill combine, one becomes a master? When it comes to acquiring such knowledge, there's nothing better than a mentor to guide you. Of course, it has to be Mom. When Ray considered choosing such a mentor, he thought of Sayin without a second thought. When Ray asked Sayin to teach him magic, she was thrilled. She nodded her head in agreement with a smile. Pre-study is a very good habit. First, magic is like this. Fire. As Sayin spoke, she flicked her fingers. A small flame appeared on top of her fingers. She looked profoundly at her son, expecting him to be amazed. But Ray didn't show any particular reaction. That was because he could do it too. Huh? You're not surprised? Look! Fire! Fire! Instead, Sayin was the one who was surprised. The only magic Ray knew was the healing magic she used. That was why she deliberately chose a visually impressive fire spell. But Ray didn't blink an eye. Oh, it's fire! Pretending to be amazed while awkwardly clapping, he felt a slight disconnect. However, Sayin quickly adapted. It's strange. My son has always been strange. She muttered softly as she continued to explain. Magic is about converting mana, using an incantation, and then performing a small gesture that acts as a trigger. But when it comes to converting mana, it feels like it's going to disintegrate at any moment if I try to convert it in a different way. What's wrong? Sayin tilted her head at Ray's question. It was as if he was asking questions about the part where he got stuck while using magic. But no matter how you looked at it, her son had just turned 3 years old. The idea that he could use magic was far too exaggerated. Using a different method of conversion? For instance, with the fire spell you just used, there are 3 conversions involved, right? Heating the mana, drawing in the mana to be combusted, and applying friction. If you use a single conversion instead of 3, it shortens the casting time and simplifies the process. But when you try to do that, the mana just disappears. Saiyin's mouth dropped open at Rei's relentless stream of words. The topic Rei was discussing was often debated in magical academies. But since it was practically impossible, it remained an idealistic theory. Seiyin scratched her head at this overly high-level conversation with a 3-year-old. How could she explain this? The questions were those of a young child, but they were as complicated and challenging as debating with a scholar. Frankly, she didn't know the answer. But she had just begun teaching him magic, and answering "I don't know" from the start would hurt her pride as a teacher. I can't let that happen. The first words from a teacher can't be "I don't know." Reducing 3 phenomena to 1 is impossible. But if you could bundle the 3 phenomena together and then stabilize it, maybe it would be possible? Her answer ended in a question because she was unsure herself. Even the royal court's chief sorcerer, considered the best in the kingdom, snorted at this impossible idealistic theory. Stabilize it. Rei felt deep in thought at Seiyin's answer, which was basically an admission of not knowing. If you add 1 attribute to the completed shape of the mana that has gone through the 3 conversions, would that work? This realization was possible thanks to his modern-day memories. For example, hot gas particles and the energy released when fire burns are different. If he can stabilize the shape of the mana that has gone through the 3 conversions. Rei moved the mana and spread his hands wide. Whoosh! Flames erupted from Rei's outstretched hand. Seiyin was extremely surprised to see that. Her heart nearly leaped out of her chest seeing Rei using magic. But what surprised her even more was the fact that she didn't know until the magic manifested. Usually, before magic manifests, you can feel the flow and nature of the mana. So during battle, a magician's top priority is to scatter the mana here and there to hide what kind of magic is manifesting. Hiding the manifesting magic is so sacred that it can be considered a secret tradition of noble families. But Seiyin, who was sensitive enough to see through the secret traditions of those noble families to some extent, didn't notice the magic until it happened. In a real battle, that could have meant death. Seiyin couldn't suppress the shiver that ran down her spine. Her son wasn't peculiar. All the actions she had previously found strange were merely her misinterpretations. Rei is a prodigy.